All right, Tougies take 54.
54.
My personal favorite number. Couldn't tell you why. It just started happening one day. It never went away. Tougies take 54. We're here. We are ready to film this episode. How about we start with a unique, one-of-a-kind warmies?
One of a kind. All right. Again, to reiterate this to everybody, he does not tell me what he's doing, what it's going to be about. I am just as intrigued as you are, hopefully intrigued as you are.
Well, Tougie, today's warmies, we are going to be filling out a psychological quiz I found on uquiz.com to find out which NHL team you should be rooting for.
Oh, okay. All right.
So, from 1 to 5, how important is it to you to one day be a season ticket holder?
I mean, it would be nice.
Okay, that's actually, it would be nice is actually one of the possible answers here. So it says there are more important things, but it'd be nice.
Yeah, I mean, if I look at it in a super serious way, like the logistics of where I live right now, there's no way I could be a season ticket holder to any NHL team. So it's
not about going to the games, it's about holding the tickets.
Oh, so even if I would be the type of douche to just constantly put them on the resale market.
No, they just feel good in your hands. All right,
let's go with it would be nice. That's fair.
All right, so this is from a 1 to 3.
Okay.
All right, so I'll just read the answers because they're kind of funny. How important is loyalty to you? Very. There are more important things. Or some things aren't worth loyalty.
Who hurt you? Whoever wrote this quiz. Who hurt you? I mean, I define loyalty as a pretty important thing. Like, about time you're like, hey, I'm gonna go have a different hockey podcast. Bye. I'd be pretty miffed.
Yeah.
I'd view that as a.
I mean, like, what if your dog found a new family? I'd be pissed.
So yeah, we'll go with very. I still want to know who hurt whoever wrote this, though, with that.
I know, right? There's no author name, unfortunately. All right, question number 3 of 22. Do you think tanking is a good strategy, or do you believe a team should never try to lose? And the answers are Tank Nation, I'm on the fence, or with jersey costs as high as they are, they better be trying to win every night.
What is this?
I don't know, but it feels like I wrote it.
It really does. Tanking is a viable strategy unless your leadership group is consisting of those who run the Buffalo Sabres.
Cool, Tank Nation it is.
Tank Nation.
What's your opinion on refs? Is it great? They say some real funny things. They make mistakes, but the game goes so fast we all would. Or they poisoned our water supply, burned our crops, and delivered a plague unto our houses. I have not looked at any of these questions, and I'm so glad that this is the one we picked.
I mean, if I'm going to keep treating this seriously, I'd go with the middle option of hey, refereeing, there's naturally human error as a part of it, but I really want to go with the burn our crops one. We'll go with the middle ground.
What's your favorite color out of yellow, red, blue, green, or orange?
Now, see, this is the trick question, because if I want it to be the Bruins, I would say yellow, but I mean, yellow's not my favorite color.
I think we all put that together based on your room decor.
Yeah. Blue, fair enough. I'd have to go with blue as my favorite color.
All right, blue it is.
Yeah.
All right, finish this sentence. Goalies are crazy, the best, never to blame, helpless without a good defense, or just like every other player on the ice? If they're good, they're good. If they're bad, they're bad.
I feel like it's the last one. If they're good, they're good. If they're bad. Because if I were to go with the helpless without a good defense thing, like that's not true.
Yeah,
I've had
the
that
Carey
discussion.
Price people would eat that one up.
Yes, they would. And again, that's been my argument, is we have seen goaltenders do very well despite being behind some horrible defenses. So if they're good, they're good. If they're bad, they're bad.
So, Tougie, what's the best part of hockey night in Canada? Is it the early game, the later game, the after hours show, or is it not watching it? I'm American.
So what's the date on this quiz?
There is no date. There's no author. There's not even any pictures. It's like very minimal in a weird way.
I was gonna say, like, did they compile this when Don Cherry was still on the show? Because I mean, who doesn't love a bit of old man? Just I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think of the right words here. I don't want to say outright racism, but
I believe the word you're looking for is curmudgeon-y.
Yeah, there's that. But also, like, there's a specific word to say against foreigners. And he was against foreigners for a long time. It didn't matter where you were from, whether you were some pinko liberal or, or a Russian wearing a visor. Hockey night in Canada. There used to be times where I would explore segments that they had, especially like recently where it's like, oh, hey, here's Elliot Friedman. But I mean, for the most part, I think I'll just settle with I'm American. I don't care.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Because it's true. That's how I feel about it. Okay, this either makes the quiz a little old or very recent. Which division is the most interesting? Not necessarily the one you like the most, but which one seems to have the best stories in playoff race? The Metro, Atlantic, Pacific, or Central?
It's got to be the Atlantic. And again, you could say, I mean, especially like right now on this day, heading in to this upcoming season, you look at that Atlantic division. And the idea of, I guess, what we have here with, I mean, God, what would it? I'm trying to think. Yeah, does it skip your mind at all? Like, oh yeah, that's right. These are the proper divisions after this past season. But you look at the Atlantic, and the thought of Boston, Florida, Tampa, Toronto, just on that alone. And then you get to factor in teams like Montreal and Ottawa, who can certainly push for a playoff spot. Montreal should be in there. You could say it's a big five, but is it possible for all five teams to make it when the Metro is also good? I mean, I think I'd have to go with the Atlantic just because you have teams, 3 if not 4 teams who are like, yeah, if we don't win the Stanley Cup, we kind of failed.
Yeah,
so
I think that's fair. So what is the most important thing for a sports team to have? Is it a legacy, current talent, hope? I just hope everyone has fun. Defense or cuties?
This is incredible. I would say, honestly, hope.
Yeah,
because
it's
even
the hope that kills you,
It is, but that's the most important thing. Because even if your team sucks, like I saw something today in regards to MLB teams that ranked the most stressed out fan bases. And number 1, most stressed, were the New York Mets, which makes sense. Because it's always got to be, we got to be good, we got to be good. And apparently the least stressed franchise, according to this poll, belonged to the team that is in last place. The fewest amount of wins with 40 in Major League Baseball as of this recording, and that's Baltimore. And I can't help but think that's because the Baltimore Orioles have some pretty good young players in their system. And they think, well, we suck right now, but what could happen in the future?
It's also
whereas
we can just watch the Ravens,
preseason champs. But yeah, I mean, I'd have to go with hope, right? Because it's like, if you're a Buffalo Sabres fan, and I'm sorry, Sabres fans, but I'm not saying anything you don't know. The idea of like, your team sucks, but if you could just be allowed to focus on, well, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, Rasmus Dahlin, Owen Power, hopefully Jack Eichel. Like, if you were allowed to just focus on the positives of what could happen in the next 5 to 10 years, you'd be good. But there's been so much shit over the past couple of years, if not longer, surrounding that franchise that you can't focus on the hope. So it's just a miserable experience. And I mean, I don't know, maybe certain Leafs fans would disagree, but you have hope now. A couple years ago, before Austin Matthews was drafted, you're like, we're just fucked forever. Would you rather be in that, oh my God, Clark MacArthur's our best player phase, or in an Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, Nylander, Tavares phase, but we still can't get out of the first round type of disappointment? At least there's some hope there now that maybe somehow they could do the thing, but you didn't have that hope when Clark MacArthur was your best player. So
that makes sense.
I'd say hope is the most important thing. I'm taking this way too seriously.
Yeah, we still have 12 questions.
Holy shit!
I told you it's in depth. This is a psychological profile. This isn't highlights for kids. A focus on the family magazine. So I will say that there is only one widget on this entire website. There's no ads. Everything's completely like blank. And there's a widget in the corner that is like, it just pops up every 30 seconds what another very popular quiz is. And the one that just popped up was called, Can You Fix Him?
Jesus.
Oh, wow. That's a weird one. Okay. So how bad are you at taking a joke about your hockey team? As long as it's harmless, I'll laugh along. Worse than I want to admit. Awesome. Then I can chirp back. Or bad, terrible, not
good. Can you repeat the question?
So how bad are you at taking a joke about your hockey team?
I don't care. Like, it's no problem. Like, I guess, it gives you the chance to chirp back maybe, but it doesn't.
I'm definitely going to answer chirp back for you. I feel like that's how you handle this.
I mean, I do like the chirp back because arguing with people is, I don't know why, but it's a fun thing to do. But like, I'm never going to take the joke personally because it's like, who gives a shit?
Yeah.
Like, my identity is not so intrinsically tied up to this sports team that I have no association with other than, well, my parents like this team and I had, that I was just indoctrinated into the idea of liking the sports team. So, yeah. I mean, whatever. But yeah, I'll jokingly chirp back. I mean, why not?
So I love this next question. Of the following four, who is the worst? Is it Jeremy Roenick, Mike Milbury, Don Cherry, or Pierre Maguire?
Holy shit. Okay, so let's see. So Jeremy Roenick, in a broadcasting sense, wasn't that bad. But he also essentially sexually harassed Catherine Tappan. Mike Milbury has horrific hockey takes, but he's also a hero because he beat a man with his own shoe. Don Cherry is just an old man. And Pierre Maguire is a hockey.
It's just an old young man.
God, who's the worst? It depends on how you judge the worst. God, I guess I will have to judge this off of who I find the least entertaining. Mike Milbury is a horrible GM and probably a horrible personality, but I like how pissed off people get about him because I can always say he beat a man with his own shoe.
He just makes me uncomfortable. It's not like anything to do with the shoe. There's just something about like him looking like a penguin and like, I don't know. It's weird. Like it doesn't sit well with me.
Don Cherry has said some horrible shit.
And he just goes on and on.
I can't not laugh when he gets all the names wrong. Like he's called Eric Goodbranson Gufferson, Goodbudskin. Like it's the best. So it's between Pierre Maguire. I like how pissed off. I'm going to go with Jeremy Roenick because I don't really see any positives to like what he brings to the table. Like there's really, sorry, Jeremy, by the way, but in terms of like the polarizing nature of him, I just feel like I don't care. Whereas with Mike Milbury, I like how upset people get. Don Cherry, I don't like how upset people get about the heinous shit that he said because they're right to be upset. What the fuck, Don Cherry? But you can look at some of his, highlight clips in terms of comedy. You can at least get a chuckle out of it. And then Pierre's so polarizing that I just find it funny, again, how pissed off people get. So I'll go with Jeremy Roenick.
Okay.
Sorry for taking so long with these, but deduction, it's important.
Okay. So, all right, this one has 7 possible answers.
Jesus Christ.
Which of the following is the most problematic bias in the NHL? Is it the Pittsburgh Penguins bias? The Canadian bias? The Toronto bias?
Hold on, there's a Canadian bias?
Well, there's also
one in my lifetime. How?
There's also a Toronto bias.
Well, by Sportsnet, maybe, but that's who cares? The
Northern bias, the North American bias, the American bias, or the Eastern bias.
What?
Just these are all theoretical biases that people claim exist. Which one's the most problematic?
I mean, I don't view like the Penguins as having a bias towards them at this stage. I'm surprised like Southern team bias isn't there. Because that seems
Toronto.
to be
I was like
well, that seems to be like the most common one is like, oh, Tampa, they got all the calls, and oh, the Coyotes should have moved already to a Canadian market, but the conspiracy to keep them there from Gary Bettman, like I would have figured that would have been there. I don't view the Toronto bias as a bad thing by the Canadian media because they're the biggest team in the league. Like, obviously, they're going to get covered a lot. Sorry, Sens fans, but what the fuck? How about you make it back to a conference final? I mean, you did, almost 10 years ago now. How long was 2014? How long ago was 2014?
That was 7 years ago.
It was. Jesus. I don't know. I don't like any of these responses.
Well, the ones you have left are the Eastern bias, the Canadian bias, the American bias, and the North American bias.
I'll go with the North American bias because I still feel like, in a way, you have a lot of European players, especially Russians, who get saddled with like bullshit reputations. So let's go with the North American bias.
So of the following 3 crowd chants, which one is your favorite? The Austin Matthews chant during the Sens home opener.
I don't remember that. Were they just chanting his name?
Oh, they were.
Okay.
The push it chant when a ref makes a bad call.
What?
Are you not aware? Okay, never mind. Well, it's
I've
the bullshit
never heard
chant.
of that in my life.
It's the bullshit chant, but like people like in high schools, they push forward so it looks like they're saying push it.
Okay.
It's great.
I believe you.
And then the Nashville all your fault chant.
I'm going to go with the all your fault chant because people get really pissed off at that too.
Yeah, it's getting cringy and annoying.
I get that, exactly. I get that people define it as toxic and cringy, but the fact that people are so annoyed by it brings me joy because who the hell cares? Oh, but they're fake fans and they gave out a sheet to say, here, chant this at this time and take part. It's like, oh, wow, an arena wanted to make sure that they actually have fucking atmosphere. Oh, man, what a horrible team and fan base. Like, I mean, I get it. Nashville fucking raises banners for no reason, but yeah, no, we'll go with that one. We'll go with the Nashville one. That's my favorite one.
How do you feel about Original Six teams? Would you say they're legendary, fantastic, out of this world? Would you say who cares? Would you say only old men like Original Six teams? Or would you say you hold on to them because it's the only reason you have any cups?
Well, that's not true. Shout out to 2011. But I know if I was a Habs fan with that answer, I mean, yeah, we'll go with the first one. I mean, shit. Like, I get the idea of like people being sick of like, oh, celebrating Original 16, but it's like there's a reason Like, they were the first. They were the original. Celebrate them. What's the big deal?
So if you had to bring back one defunct team, which one would you bring? Which one would you choose? Thrashers, Nordiques, Golden Seals, North Stars, or Whalers?
So it's between Thrashers, Nordiques, and Whalers. It's tough because, the Whaler. So here's the problem.
Whalers would come between you and Boston.
In a way. Well, no, they wouldn't at all.
Yeah, that's true. I guess it is south of Massachusetts. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I think the Pilgrims were wrong.
It's like the Nordiques would be nice to have another Canadian team, but I don't know. Plus, they have an arena that's not, incredibly new anymore, but still would be really cool to actually see host NHL games. But I gotta be honest. I'm gonna go with a very Gary Bettman answer, and I might go with Atlanta because I think, number one, it could help the division. Granted, any of the teams could help, the divisions kind of square up a little bit better. But then again, they've had a team twice. Fuck. God. All three I'd like to see back in the league. I am going to go with the Atlanta Thrashers.
Cool. So of the following four, pick one. Pizza, coffee, burger, donut.
Pizza. Not even
Best rivalry. Do you go with Pens Caps, Pens Flyers, Oilers Flames, Rangers Islanders, or Bruins Habs?
It's Bruins Habs long term. Obviously, the past while now, it hasn't been the most heated rivalry in the world, pretty much since Milan Lucic left. But I gotta go with that.
Cool. Do you want to go to an outdoor game? Yes or no?
Yes. I would have liked to have gotten to either or any of the 3 Winter Classic games the Bruins have taken part in, but I also prefer to not have to sell one of my kidneys to be able to afford tickets. So
that's fair.
Oh boy.
The reason I'm laughing is this next question.
Okay.
The most important thing for a captain to have, is it talent, responsibility, dad strength, personality, or captains aren't that important?
I feel like the dad strength just had to be for Joe Thornton.
It has a trademark symbol next to it also.
Nice. Jesus. To be honest, I'm gonna go with talent. I get the idea of responsibility and leadership qualities, but it also helps if your captain is the best player on the ice. I don't know. I don't want my captain, no disrespect, but if the Bruins were we're going to name Chris Wagner captain over Patrice Bergeron, you would question that. So, yeah, we're going to go with talent.
Okay. So, do you enjoy watching your players winning individual awards? Is it yes, because I expect them to? Yes, they deserve recognition. Who cares about NHL awards? Or the only award that matters is the Stanley Cup?
I think I'll go with the second one. Obviously it's situational.
They deserve recognition.
They do. Well, if they deserve recognition is how I would phrase it. But the case of Patrice Bergeron, he always deserves recognition as the best defensive forward in NHL history. So, yeah, let's go with that second one.
Okay, and this is probably my favorite question so far that we've asked, just because of the way it subverts expectations. Okay. Pick a non-NHL city.
Milwaukee.
Is it on there? I feel like I just saw it. It is not. Okay, so you've got Orlando, Florida, Niagara Falls, New York, Ann Arbor, Michigan, Kansas City, Missouri, Green Bay, Wisconsin, Sacramento, California, Salt Lake City, Utah, Austin, Texas, Baltimore, Maryland, Windsor, Ontario.
Okay, there's a lot of good ones. Let's go with Salt Lake City.
I mean, before you hear Boise, Idaho, Charleston, West Virginia, Atlantic City, New Jersey, or San Francisco,
I want the Utah Storm and Mormons in the NHL.
Cool. Pick a movie genre.
What are these at this point?
Here are your possible answers. Cult documentaries, classic horror films, biopics.
Now, cult documentaries
movies.
In terms of it's about cults, or like it's it's like one of those like Jiro Dreams of Sushi where everyone's like, oh my god, this is amazing.
I honestly have no idea. I think it goes either way, because you also get historical documentaries, sports documentaries, and then we get gangster and musicals, classic monster movies, which is apparently different from classic horror films. Then we have holiday, drama, underdog, Western, comedy, or action.
Obviously, my interests are covered within that, but I have to be completely honest with myself. If I were to say like, oh, I could only watch one of those, it would probably be sports documentaries. As boring as that is. I mean, hey, I love a good movie. I love a good documentary as much as the next guy, but I mean, yeah, I could sit there and just like burn through the 30 for 30s on a constant loop, and it'd be great. I can't imagine what this next question is if you're laughing.
Oh, it's
already.
over. Are you ready to hear what team you should be rooting for? Because this is hilarious.
Montreal's my guess.
It is the Tampa Bay Lightning. Congratulations, Tougie.
All right,
and you know what's funny? Apparently, the vast majority of people that take this quiz get the Nashville Predators, followed by the Islanders, the Habs, the Sens, and the Ducks. And you joined in with 2% of people got the Tampa Bay Lightning.
So if I'm a fan of the Lightning, does that mean I have to attend parades during the middle of a pandemic without a mask?
Yeah, apparently being a Lightning fan psychologically suits you.
Maybe that, okay. So there you go.
You don't know until you try it.
Tougie hated on the Lightning because he's actually a Lightning fan. It's like like closeted pastors who hate on gay people. It's like, just embrace who you are.
It's the same reason
embrace my life as a Lightning fan.
Yeah. It's the same reason that the bad guy from Brink hated Team Pup and Suds.
Yeah, is it the reason? He
really wanted to be a piece of, that was actually, shout out to Sam Horrigan, the actor that played Val Horrigan in Brink. Yeah, fun fact, same last name. And he wanted to join Team Pup and Suds and have real friends. Tampa Bay Lightning's your answer. This deep dive into the psychology of Toog, what makes Toog tick, which may be this episode's title, has been brought to you by Manscaped. Manscaped. Deal with it. And you know what we're talking about. By using code Tougie for 20% off.
Big shout out to Manscaped, of course, for sticking with this show. I mean, Deej, they hopped on board less than 2 months into the show's existence, if that. And I think we've we're sticking with them. Manscaped's going nowhere. The official sponsor of this podcast. Again, check out the website. Get yourself anything from a fantastic t-shirt like this one I'm wearing today. For those of you that are watching on the video side of things on the Tougies Take podcast channel, hey, subscribe if you haven't. Feel free to get just an abundance of fantastic products. The Lawnmower 4.0, the Weed Whacker, the Ultra Smooth package. Endless options from your friends at Manscaped.
This is the intro now.
we're back from the intro.
Indeed.
What do you say? We answer some, as they say in Spain, preguntas.
Have I not answered enough questions? Jesus. It's been a long show already. We will kick things off with perhaps the unofficial third member of this podcast, one Mr. Endo Mills. You can follow him on Twitter and Twitch at Endo Mills, of course. A video editor extraordinaire for myself and many of my other friends. Who had the quietest offseason in the NHL, and do you think that'll translate to success this year? So, Deej, I looked this up, and there were probably 3 teams that came to mind, maybe 4. And honestly, I was going to consider Washington, but like trading Brendan Dillon and getting Vanacek back, I'd rule them out.
And the new OV contracts.
Yeah, that's true. So there are 3 teams that come to mind that were pretty quiet. Anaheim, Ottawa, and Pittsburgh. I mean, Ottawa, you could potentially rule out for the trade of one Mr. Evgeny Dadonov to the Vegas Golden Knights. So, I mean, out of these teams, like, is a quiet offseason going to benefit Anaheim? Probably not. Like, I don't think that'll necessarily translate to success, but, you know, you don't expect them to make a big splash when they're building up around a young core. For Pittsburgh, though, I mean, hey, it might work out. It's Pittsburgh.
Yeah. I mean, they missed that expansion draft.
I mean, granted, yeah, they did lose Brandon Tanev. I don't know. I don't know if anyone who is relatively quiet here is going to be better off for it, especially a team like Pittsburgh. I mean, you lose Tanev. Not saying it's the biggest loss in the world, but you lost Cody Ceci, who was decent for you. So I don't know. I don't know. You know. There was obviously, like, for every team, there was kind of a story of like, oh, these moves or non-moves and whether or not they'll pay off. But yeah, for these 3 teams that come to mind, I don't necessarily see them being better off today, having, you know, not done much.
I don't know. I say, when I saw this list, I immediately just thought of Ottawa, just because they have a young core. Like, they've got players they need, and kind of the game plan from here is just to sit on it and let them get better. So maybe that translates into success for them.
Could very well. I mean, again, I think I just talked about the Atlantic Division, right? And just how stacked it is. So they'll have a tough time making the playoffs, though. So, yeah, interesting. I mean, it was very tough, though, out of the now 32 teams in the NHL to find even just a handful of teams that didn't really do that much this offseason. I mean, even like Arizona, they didn't necessarily add, but I mean, they traded OEL, they traded Kemper, they traded Garland. So it certainly wasn't quiet for them. Deej's favorite is up next. It's a football question. The footy. This is from Habs fan. Thoughts on Cristiano Ronaldo returning to Manchester United? Deej, your thoughts.
I really just need to give a shout out to Cristiano Ronaldo. I haven't really watched a lot of his games over the years, but the fact that he's doing it, I respect that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I did admittedly just get a little bit distracted by apparently, Carolina deciding to just randomly troll people.
I think they've been doing that for years.
Yeah. So to cut this off really quickly, apparently the Carolina Hurricanes, is this real? Okay, I guess it is. Maybe. I'm trying to read the article to see if this is real, but it's on their website, so it has to be. Dom Waddell, president and GM of the National Hockey League's Carolina Hurricanes, announced today that the team has tendered an offer sheet to RFA forward Jesperi Kotkaniemi of the Montreal Canadiens. The one-year contract, which Kotkaniemi has signed, pays a salary of $6.1 million for the upcoming season with a $20 signing bonus. The Habs have 7 days to match the offer. If they don't, they'll receive a first and third round pick from the upcoming drafts. Waddell stated, Kotkaniemi accepted our offer. He wants to come to Carolina. He sees the core that we've built, so on and so forth. So it's the $20 signing bonus that makes it look fake, but apparently the Hurricanes have actually offer sheeted Jesperi Kotkaniemi, which I presume...
Out of revenge.
Out of revenge, exactly, for Sebastian Aho being offer sheeted by the Habs a few years ago.
Yeah, they changed their Twitter bio to French. Like, that's how serious Carolina is about this. That was like, I saw on Reddit, that was the newest post when you're like, something weird's going on. Is this a troll? So I was like, Thorpe, I knew. What did I miss? And it was like, Hurricanes changed their Twitter bio to French. I was like, that doesn't seem like breaking news. But apparently them posting the Uno reverse card is a masterstroke.
So we'll get back to that question in a minute about Ronaldo. But looking at this situation, the Habs have no cap space. They do not have room to match this offer sheet. Kotkaniemi is their last RFA. I mean, I guess, I think they do. Again, LTIR, and whether or not that's factored in yet on Cap Friendly, they would technically have about $11.25 million in LTIR space with Shea Weber and Paul Byron being injured. They said Carey Price should be good to go for the season. But I'm intrigued. I mean, a 1 year, $6 million offer for Kotkaniemi is a pretty shrewd move by Carolina. But yeah, I mean, if it's, again, if Cap Friendly is still factored in with not mentioning LTIR, which it does mention $2.2 million being used, which I'm not sure where that comes in because that's not Weber or Byron's cap hit, obviously. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens here. I would presume that Montreal is going to match this. But at the end of the day, interesting turn of events there. I do wonder if Carolina actually could have offered more. I'm going to look that up really quickly just because they probably could have priced this out. And actually, I mean, Carolina's listed as having $4.5 million. So unfortunately, with the way Cap Friendly is structured right now, it can be a little bit tough to tell who actually has space and who doesn't, because it's not as if Cap Friendly is currently factoring in more money or more players, for example, that would be sent down. So, Deej, the rare offer sheet, how do you think this is going to play out? I'd imagine Montreal will match the deal.
Well, I think the craziest thing about all of it, right, is that when you really take a step back and put everything in perspective, he won 5 Ballon d'Ors.
We'll talk about Ronaldo in a second, because obviously Deej doesn't give a shit. He's going to get a good laugh out of this and let him.
All right,
it's
so,
okay.
So
Kotkaniemi, where's he going to play this
5
season?
DHS. I mean, I don't know. It was interesting because, I mean, obviously, I will go as far as to say that it would seem to me that the Carolina Hurricanes probably think higher of Kotkaniemi than the Montreal Canadiens do.
I don't think that's tough to accomplish, so yes.
I think that the Canadian, I mean, like, he got benched. He was used in, I mean, he only scored 5 goals last year in the regular season. Like, he scored another 5 in the playoffs. Like, obviously, I don't know. I think, you know, I think he is a Carolina Hurricane. I think we may see, I mean, has there ever been a successful offer sheet under the new rules?
Yes. I think the last offer sheet was at Dustin Penner. Last successful bank robbery is the autofill. NHL offer sheet. Shout out to Google. List of players who have signed offer sheets in the NHL. Well, Kotkaniemi's already been added. The last offer sheet was douchebag Dustin Penner. Sorry, but I call it as I sees it off of social media. But yeah, July 26th of 2007, the Edmonton Oilers successfully picked up Dustin Penner from the Anaheim Ducks. The Ducks got a first, second, and third in 2008 for him. Since then, we have had David Backes get offer sheeted by the Canucks in 2008. Who the hell remembers that? The Blues obviously kept him. Steve Bernier was offer sheeted by the Blues. In response, 7 days later, the Canucks held on to him. So there is a history of teams being, this punchy with one another. San Jose offer sheeted Nick Hjalmarsson in 2010. Blackhawks held on to him. Obviously, the most famous one has to be the Philadelphia Flyers. Actually, maybe not, but the Philadelphia Flyers offer sheeting Shea Weber in 2012. Nashville held on. And then maybe the most famous one is Ryan O'Reilly getting offer sheeted by the Flames in a deal which would have seen them have to immediately put Ryan O'Reilly through waivers to keep him. Colorado ended up keeping him and then dealing him to Buffalo. And then the most recent one prior to this was Sebastian Aho 2 years ago. by Montreal, where Carolina retained. So there's a really interesting history in terms of offer sheets in the NHL. And it's just really, again, there's a history here of teams going back and forth with, I guess, messing around with one another. Just bizarre.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I think I don't know. I think he actually suits up for the Hurricanes.
I have to
which
agree.
Is crazy,
I mean,
because he's a football player.
Yeah. I mean, so Cap Friendly just put this out. With Weber out for the season and Byron out until the beginning of the next year, the Habs could place both players on LTIR and build up as much as $92.7 million if needed. But they'd have to drop below 80. So basically, they could keep Kotkaniemi for that price. But once Byron comes back in January, they'd have to drop about $3 million in cap to hold on. So it's very possible for Montreal financially to make this happen. But like you mentioned, there's been some weird stuff with Kotkaniemi and the Habs. So I can't help but think that, yeah, maybe Montreal just wants to take the picks here and move on.
Yeah.
I think Kotkaniemi ends up being a Kane. Crazy as that is. So we'll get back on track here, because this show, thanks to the Warmies and that little segue, has already gone on a lot longer than we thought it would. In terms of Cristiano Ronaldo moving from Juventus back to Manchester United for the first time in almost a decade now, or about a decade, it's crazy. It would be the hockey equivalent of Sidney Crosby and Alex Ovechkin playing on new teams as of the same offseason. Like, it's absolutely insane, and is crazy to think that it happened. Again, Leo Messi going from Barcelona, where he's been since he was a child, essentially, to PSG, and now you have Ronaldo going again back to United, which is interesting. You get one of the best players of all time coming back to the Premier League. It really changes the outlook. So I would say, if you're still like a casual, watcher of the Premier League or whatever, now is a really interesting time. I mean, there's always an interesting time. I find the league and sport to be fascinating, but very interesting time to get acclimated to what's going on.
Yeah.
And as Deej mentioned, Ronaldo's won 5 Ballon d'Ors.
Yeah. Just gotta. Does that work like Quidditch? It's fine. All right. Well, our next question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Comes from Polly.
Yes.
Who is the best Finnish player in 2025? And the answer is, I don't know. I'm obviously not a time traveler.
I mean, there's some decent shouts. Like, will Patrick Laine turn it around? Will someone like Aatu Ratu or any other younger Finn be amazing? Will Sebastian Aho keep getting better? But I like that the Panthers fan allowed me to say this instead of himself. Sasha Markov. Obviously, yeah. I can't imagine he's going to drop off that much within 4 years.
Especially, I mean, he's 25 right now. He'll be 29 in 4 years. It's not like he'll be, you know what I mean? He'll still be in his prime.
Yeah.
I mean, you obviously have Aatu Ratu. You have like Anton Lundell as well, has looked very good. So there are guys, but I would say that the smart money would be on Sasha Barkov.
Fair enough. We have 2 questions from friend of the show, Richard Head. And we get, I believe, only our second FMK question in podcast history. I believe the first one was also from Rich. So, Deej, we get to pick from friend of the show, Crash Andrews, the previously mentioned Endo Mills, and noted follower on YouTube and Twitch, of course, One Warrior. FMK, Deej. He's thinking about it.
I don't know. I mean, the easiest one is you kill Warrior because he's not a real person. So there's no crime committed. And then I think no
matter what, you're marrying a Canadian citizen here, so the healthcare is automatically
I think
improved.
You friend Crash and you marry Endo because he can edit the hell out of an image.
And for the sole purpose that Endo's younger. And presumably the relationship will be able to sustain for longer. No offense, Crash, but I think you have almost 20 years on Endo. I think. The second question. When are we bringing on more guests? Probably soon. So now's a good time to mention what the upcoming week is going to be on the show. Deej is doing a little bit of traveling in the upcoming week. So we're going to be trying something different on Tuesday and Friday of the upcoming week with some...
Diane Sawyer, our first guest of the summer of 2021.
Oh, God. So we're going to try some different stuff in terms of pre-recorded content rather than me just hosting the show with guests. We want to see how people like that type of stuff and see if that's a better option. Since Deej, admittedly, obviously, as a goddamn audio engineer, it makes sense for him to handle most of the stuff in regards to the podcast. I handle a lot of the video stuff and, kind of getting our format sheet here aside from the warmies. So we're going to try something new. We'll see how people like it. And then in the future, obviously, if one of us has to bow out, no issue with either handling the podcast solo or bringing in friends of the channel to help kind of fill it out. So, yeah, we'll still have guests back on soon. Obviously, we got some pals that we'd like to have on the show at some point.
Yeah. But also Diane Sawyer. So Dominic asks, who has the worst arena in the NHL? And I feel like it would have to be, so I can't come up with a serious answer for this, but my answers were,
so you go for the
one,
joke answer.
Climate Pledge Arena, no fans. Or two, I was going to go with the Scotiabank Arena because it's filled with Leafs fans.
Oh, fantastic. So in terms of serious answers, I mean, a lot of people, I don't think they realize, like, Climate Pledge Arena isn't new. Like, it's technically, I mean, it was renovated, right? Like, this is still the same arena that the Sonics used to play in. So, I mean, recently renovated, but that arena has originally broke ground in 1960. So I'm intrigued to see what the renovations look like. Aside from that, Canadian Tire Center for the Sens, because it's so far out of the way. And I hate to say it because I love it. It's iconic, but the Saddle Dome in Calgary. Again, I love that arena, but also do we not remember that it had a massive flood less than a decade ago, and they've constantly been trying to get the rights to build a new stadium, so I'm going to have to go with the Saddle Dome. Sorry, Flames fans, but again, I do love it. But I
also literally just put together why it's called the Saddle Dome. So onwards and upwards to the next question. Doug, a different Doug.
But not a better Doug.
Yeah, there are very few of those. What is your least favorite number and why?
69. It's not funny anymore. I don't know if it was ever funny to begin with. Just let it go.
So my brain wanted to go two directions in this. Like, one was like a Ted Lasso style speech in my head, where it's like, 1 is my least favorite number because it's alone. But also, the other way I wanted to go was like easily 13 because I fancy myself a bit triskaidekaphobic. That's right. Number 1 spelling bee word in America, triskaidekaphobia.
I thought it was negus.
Not anymore.
Not
for
anymore.
Obvious reasons.
Fair. Come on, think of a more famous spelling bee clip. And that's right, Endo. I thought of a way to bring it up on the podcast. I did it.
I think there's that one where they spell the words right. That was a good clip.
Fair.
Yeah.
Has that ever happened?
Yeah, I did 13 because it's bad luck or 1 because it's all alone. Those are my answers.
13 because I can never find it in the hotel when I go. I can never find that 13th floor. This question comes from Nolan. Do you think you could beat an NHLer in a fight? Deej?
Easily. Not even a question.
Now, I have to say, just as a fight, it doesn't mean a hockey fight. So if we're on skates, I'm fucked against any professional athlete who will obviously have incredible balance.
I'm just picturing, like...
Go ahead.
I don't know. I'm just picturing like if I was the type of guy who drove like a lifted truck with an American flag on the back, how I'd answer this question. The answer would be like, they've been training their whole life to put a puck in a net. I've been training my whole life to defend my family. And that was like immediately my reaction to this. So all of them easily.
I was going to say you are a Florida man. So I did some research. I mean, number one, I would need to have, I'd have to fight a smaller human being. I'd need to utilize the size advantage to try and offset the massive gulf of physical fitness levels between myself and an NHL player. So I checked hockey fights. I was thinking, oh, maybe someone like Alex DeBrincat, but he's got a fair amount of fights. He's pretty feisty. So to me, it comes down to Johnny Gaudreau, Cam Atkinson, Connor Sherry, or Matt Zuccarello. And I would have to choose Matt Zuccarello because of his injury history, and he's older. So he's shorter, he's older, he's had some injury troubles. I feel like that would be my best chance to win a fight. Plus, he's Swiss. He wouldn't want to get into a fight anyway. He'd probably just let me win and let me have the ego boost while he just goes on living his life because he doesn't need to find satisfaction through fighting somebody.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go with Matt Zuccarello. I feel like he'd be the less vicious because it's like you have Connor Sherry, who's I think a Massachusetts guy. I think Cam Atkinson from like Connecticut, and Gaudreau's from fucking New Jersey. So I know he doesn't have a registered NHL fight, but that motherfucker will go for the eyes. So we're going for Zuccarello.
Yeah, I don't even think size matters to me. Like I've watched Daiju Takase defeat Emmanuel Yarborough enough times that I understand.
Just the logic, though, of like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, yeah, let me take on someone who's like, let me fight Tyler Myers, you know? Like, that's just not going to work. It's not going to work out anyway. But I need to try and get myself the best chance possible.
That's fair.
Yeah. Our next question comes from Z-Pops, and I feel like this is exclusively for Deej. Deej, what's the fish of the day?
Great question. It's almost always mahi-mahi. But for the sake of argument, we'll say the Chilean toothfish.
A classic.
Yeah, I think that's what we got to go with.
I figured there was a follow-up joke coming there. It's just, nope. Straight answer.
Nope. Just toothfish.
Our next
market
question.
Price. So
unless you got some, go ahead, take it away.
I don't know. Reds Rebel. He asks, does the NHL ever even attempt to try Atlanta for a third time? To which I respond, how do you feel about visiting Atlanta right now, let alone moving there?
Yeah,
seems like a lot, and it probably smells weird because of The Walking Dead.
Oh, Georgia. I think they'll try again at some point. I think it's too big of a market to not try to successfully, build a team in. Deidre, our final question, as we just run the gamut of questions, all different topics. This comes from Pens fan. Thoughts on proposed NASCAR number shift on the outside of cars? See the Kurt Busch to the number 23 team, of course, with Michael Jordan leading the way and Bubba Wallace. Need your thoughts on them changing the placement of numbers in NASCAR?
I feel like it makes the cars look too long, and now they all look like Batmobiles.
But think of that sweet extra sponsor money that you can get from fitting in just one more ad among thousands onto that car.
You just put one red M&M on one side and the yellow M&M on the other side. It's fine. You can keep it the way it is. You just split up the M&Ms. They don't need to be back to back with their arms crossed looking at you like, yeah, we're cool. We're M&Ms. Eat us. I don't know.
Deej against the M&Ms coming soon.
Deej versus Mars. The candy company that makes M&Ms.
I can't wait for that Netflix documentary.
Yeah.
It's going to be a good one. And hey, shout out to Kurt Busch, who, veteran driver, gets to go to a new team. boost him up. It's a good move. But yeah, the number thing, like, I don't know. It is what it is. Doesn't bother me too much. So, Deej, with that, I want to thank everybody for their lovely questions. I feel like, in a way, this show might have peaked with our Kotkaniemi discussion, if not the Warmies discussion.
Yeah.
But we'll see if we can get it back on track. You know, it's all about the ebbs and flows of a podcast. You can't be at a 100% the entire way through, but we do have some topics to get to in terms of hockey discussion. And obviously, we got to the Kotkaniemi breaking news a little bit early. So we have some other signings, and we'll talk about the Carolina Hurricanes first, because obviously they have to be the most newsworthy at this stage. And the big news, what was it, yesterday or 2 days ago now? I think it was yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. 2 days ago now, on the 26th. Andrei Cevechnikov finally re-signed with Carolina. It is the largest deal in Hurricanes team history, a $62 million deal in total, 8 years, carrying a 7.75 cap hit per season. I mean, Deej, we knew he was staying, unless Montreal missed the boat on being able to offer sheet him too, which maybe they should have. But I mean, no disrespect to Sebastian Aho, but, Cevechnikov is, I'd still call Aho maybe the young star of the team, but obviously Cevechnikov and his continued development is absolutely crucial to this team's success moving forward. So, I mean, I could see a world where it perhaps backfires, but, essentially paying for what he's going to become as opposed to what he is at this exact point in time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I don't know, I wish there was a little bit more, I don't know. It's nice to see them weaponize the cap space that.
Oh, they're weaponizing their cap space.
Yeah, it's interesting because up until this offer sheet, it almost seemed like Carolina was one of the bigger losers of this offseason, in terms of they just didn't really add anything. And then you weren't sure, obviously expected them to re-sign Svechnikov, but nothing concrete had happened. It took a little bit of time, and now they're offer sheeting Jesperi Kotkaniemi. So it's obvious that they see the need to beef up a little, and I think that's nice to see.
Yeah, I mean, the Nedeljkovic saga defensively, or, in goal defensively, getting rid of Jake Bean and losing Dougie Hamilton. So, yeah, I agree. I mean, if they pull off this move for Kotkaniemi, you have Cevechnikov now signed long-term. Goaltending, we'll see. Obviously, what is it now? Ranta and Anderson in goal. It's concerning instead of going with Nedeljkovic, who looked like he could be your guy long term. I still don't agree with a lot of their moves. Of course, there's the Tony DeAngelo move, which, I mean, hey, great hockey player, signed for a lot less money than he should be making because he can't get his head out of his ass. But there's a chance, obviously, that they're still going to be a really good team. But I think people can still rightfully question the moves that Don Waddell has made this offseason. But I agree. You get Cevechnikov under contract. If you pull off this offer sheet, there's a little bit more of an air of optimism, I'd say, surrounding this team compared to even just like a week ago.
Yeah.
So on top of that, we had an identical contract signed. Now he has 1 year left. So again, similar to like Seth Jones, this extension doesn't kick in until next year. But Sean Couturier has also signed 8 years, $7.75 million with the Philadelphia Flyers. And I get that some people are worried because Couturier is obviously, in his late 20s. He's a little bit older. But the idea for Philly is you probably would have had to pay him more if you didn't give him the term. So similar to, say, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins in Edmonton. And I think bottom line, I mean, Philly basically, cap space wise, they're completely squeezed at this point. You have to wonder, what will happen for them in this upcoming offseason, where Claude Giroux's deal is going to be up. Rasmus Ristolainen's deal will be up. So they're going to have a very interesting offseason next year. But in terms of signing Sean Couturier, it was an absolute must. He's a fantastic player, and you could not risk losing someone like that if you were Philly.
Yeah, I think for the last 3 years, I would go as far as to say that he was the best player on the Philadelphia Flyers for their last 3 seasons.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's I don't really think that's much of a stretch. I mean, I don't know. Maybe some people might still argue Claude Giroux and that he's still a little bit underrated. But obviously, at this point, I mean, Giroux is 33. So, I mean, he is, like, if he's not the best player, that being Couturier, he's the second best and pretty much neck and neck with Giroux. So it's kind of just making sure that you secure a high-level talent like that moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. I always, the one thing about Sean Couturier is I feel like he is one of the very few players in the NHL where I struggle to find like a direct comparison to. Like in terms of, like, obviously he's a very two-way defensive forward that scores, but there's something, I don't know if it's like a size thing, but there's something very different to his style of game than, like, say a Bergeron or a Barkov, and I can't exactly put my finger on it.
Yeah, I don't really
I don't know.
I don't really have an answer. I was trying to think as well, but
yeah, because I don't know. That was just, so that's for me when it comes to, like, I don't know. I guess for me, like, in evaluating players and like comparable contracts, I think it's difficult to find one for Sean Couturier. And I think, I mean, yeah, I think 8.8 by 7.75 is pretty good for your best player in a world where it's difficult to find a comparable contract.
Yeah, I think so. So again, you look at Philadelphia, you can maybe question how much they paid to get Rasmus Ristolainen, but I mean, there isn't, getting rid of Voracek too for Cam Atkinson. They've had a really interesting offseason. And, I think the pressure is there, of course. I mean, God, again, I thought they would make the playoffs bare minimum last year. There was a lot of pressure for that team to kind of get back on track. So we'll see what happens there. Other two minor signings as well. I mean, Dylan Dubé re-signed in Calgary. No real surprise there. Maybe got a tiny bit more than some people were expecting, perhaps.
That seems like a little bit more than I was expecting.
And Jordy Ben gives Minnesota some extra defensive depth alongside John Merrill, Dmitry Kulikov, and like Kalen Addison for competition on the third pair. So we've had some news this week, which is better than nothing, which we've gotten a decent amount of, obviously, in the past couple weeks. So I don't know. I don't hate, I mean, obviously, like the Dubé re-signing, don't hate it. It's a young player you got to hold on to. I'm intrigued to see if Jordy Ben can kind of bounce back in reputation after a rough time in Vancouver. I mean, he certainly won't be called upon to play in like a major role for Minnesota, like compared to Vancouver, where they're just like, well, we have Quinn and Edler's old, but he's still okay. So I think it'll be a better situation for him.
Yeah.
Not the move I thought Minnesota would make, though. I still really don't trust that forward core. Wild fans, I'm sorry, but it's, I don't know. We'll see what happens. Aside from that, we will balance some potential bad news with some good news here, as we try to do. The hits keep on coming for the NHL in terms of, I'd say, their public image. Rick Westhead reporting that Paul Monador, the father of course, Steve Monador, who passed away a number of years ago now, can pursue a lawsuit against the NHL in state court. The judge said Monador can sue the league for allegedly misrepresenting the risk of repeated concussions while promoting a culture of violence. So obviously, that the lawsuit literally has not begun yet, but it's just another instance of here's the NHL and the word lawsuit being used in headlines again. Well, like, they just can't seem to avoid, like, it's just, I don't know, this offseason to me, it just feels like the NHL in terms of public image it's like an old Looney Tunes cartoon where they're just constantly stepping on the brakes. Like they step, turn around, oh God, I got hit, step on another one. Like it's brutal.
Well, it's also important to keep in mind that this lawsuit has been going on for 6 years now, and last year was thrown out at the federal level.
Yeah.
And so what this is them appealing, asking if they can put in this suit at the state level, because it was determined that the case did not warrant a federal lawsuit versus a state lawsuit.
Yeah. So, I mean, in terms of what comes of this, who the hell knows? It'll be a long time, I'm sure, before we ever really get an answer. But it's just, I don't remember the last time I, aggregated some talking points to mention here and didn't see something about the NHL and the word lawsuit in the same sentence. It's been a little bit. So, hey, maybe at some point we'll get back to just being like, hey, nothing but positive hockey talk, please, God. Aside from that, Deej, I found your new favorite hockey player, and he is also joining what is going to be an absolute super squad with the University of Michigan, and that is prospect Rutger McGroarty has committed to Michigan after decommitting from Notre Dame last week. Rutger McGroarty.
That is a great dog name.
Rutger
McGroarty. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, there's a huge L for Notre Dame as Michigan continues to be the bad guys. Just,
I mean, everyone, I think, aside from obviously Michigan fans, are going to be rooting for that team to fail. I mean, there might be more eyes on NCAA hockey this upcoming season than we've seen in a while. For the sole purpose of just like this Michigan powerhouse, and people are going to want to watch to see them fail.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know. What's interesting is I believe he's a little bit. Yeah. So he's only 17. So he is actually draft eligible next year. Rutger McGroarty, who is, he has more R's and R sounds in his name than anyone in NHL history. So I don't know. Yeah, we'll see. I'm not really sure he's ranked. I've just seen him mentioned as a top prospect, not a
I don't believe
range.
And I mean, there are like always early projections, but I mean those change drastically, very consistently. So
yeah,
I mean, again, Michigan over. I mean, who's to say if by the time Rutger gets there that like Owen Power, Matty Beniers could still be there, but they very well could. I don't know if either Buffalo or Seattle, for example, are in a position, Columbus as well with Kent Johnson, if they're in a position to kind of rush any of these guys that make up this powerhouse Michigan team to the NHL level or the AHL for that matter. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting couple of years for NCAA hockey, which, I mean, I'm pumped about at least.
Yeah.
Last two talking points. Deej, Jack Eichel has fired his agent. And he will now be represented by very notable agent Pat Brisson, who, represents a lot of different NHL players around the league. I mean, it's just another twist of the tale of the Jack Eichel saga still being in Buffalo, where the Sabres, obviously, you want to talk about legal obligations, Chicago, no legal obligation to do anything whatsoever. Sit back. Wait for Jack Eichel to, make there'll be a decision there, or wait until they get the right trade package for him. And in the meantime, I mean, yeah, Jack just kind of has to sit there. And I guess, I mean, the optics of this is probably wasn't happy with his prior agent and is getting somebody else in there to see if there's any goddamn way that he can get out of Buffalo or negotiate the surgery he would prefer to get.
Well, yeah, so his prior agent was Peter Fish, which is one of the greatest agent names in the history of hockey agents. Just Peter Fish. And so his clients are like Olivier Borkstrand or Oliver Borkstrand. It doesn't matter. My eyes are going. He's an O. John Marino, Matt Grzelcyk, Miles Wood, Frank Vetrano. So, he's got a lot of NHL guys under his belt. However, if you are not familiar with the work of Pat Bryson, he has Sidney Crosby, Patrick Kane, Anze Kopitar, Jonathan Taves, He got Matt Duchene paid, Matt Barzal. I believe Nate McKinnon is now somebody he reps. So it makes sense. And he has been referred to as the real life Jerry Maguire, which I think is hilarious.
So I still don't know. Like, again, we thought, and it seemed as if it was an inevitable move to see Jack Eichel finally out of Buffalo. At this point, I don't think it happens until next offseason.
Yeah.
At the earliest.
Who knows?
Maybe it is that type of move that just finally gets done out of nowhere. But for the most part, I'm certainly not holding my breath that this will get done anytime soon.
Yeah. I don't know. It just adds another cog in the already complicated machine that is Jack Eichel leaving. Yeah. So who knows?
Our final talking point today. I mean, granted, the order of these maybe didn't put as much focus into them as I should have for the sake of conversation. But Tuukka Rask has pretty much said he plans on returning to the Boston Bruins, which I am obviously quite happy about. Said he is more than willing to sign for essentially dirt cheap to stay in Boston, views Boston as his home. And I don't know if there has ever been a more underappreciated player in Bruins history than Tuukka Rask by a certain section of the Bruins fan base. This guy has just had undying loyalty. The only thing he is lacking is a Stanley Cup. And again, some idiots blame him for 2013. The team quit on him at the end of Game 6. They thought, yep, we got this wrapped up, and Chicago didn't stop fighting. People have blamed him for 2019. But if you go back and look at that 2019 Cup run, I saw this stat that was from, I believe, Sportsnet at the time. Tuukka Rask, when the Bruins were, facing elimination, or it was just outright an elimination game, was absolutely superb heading into Game 7 of the 2019 Cup final against St. Louis. The Bruins would not have been in that spot without Tuukka Rask. That is an undeniable fact. The team loses that Game 7, 4-0, I think it was. I've tried to put it out of my memory as best I can because it was the most frustrating game I had ever witnessed as a fan of that team, because the team did not show up at all in that. You could argue in that Cup final, I think Patrice Bergeron only had 2 goals even strength in that final against the Blues. They obviously, Game 7 highlighted by Brad Marchand going for a very, very late line change at the end of the first period that directly cost the Bruins a goal. I get, for some people, they're going to be like, oh, just excuses to defend him. But, Tuukka Rask is the best goaltender in the history of the Boston Bruins. No disrespect to Tiny Thompson or whoever the hell, or obviously to Tim Thomas for winning in 2011, but for Tim Thomas, it was a blip on the radar. We all know this. He had arguably the best individual season and postseason run in the history of the sport, and then it didn't last. Whereas Tuukka Rask has consistently been an outstanding, consistent option for the Bruins for basically his entire career. And it still frustrates me to no end that some people, especially within the media, refuse to respect the guy for whatever reason. Obviously, too, you think back, oh my God, he left the bubble because his kid was in the hospital? No heart. How dare he? How dare he do that and put put a child over the sport? How dare he? And still, he's like, yeah, no, I'm coming back to Boston when I'm healthy. I understand why they don't have me signed right now. I'm coming back, barring any unforeseen circumstance. It's just what has been done for the Bruins to deserve this guy is kind of my thought.
Yeah, so it's interesting, right? Because he just had that surgery for the torn hip labrum 4 weeks ago. So he still has a long recovery ahead of him. But what's interesting is this Bruce Cassidy quote I found on Boston's goalie situation right now.
Mm-hmm.
So basically said, Olmark's been in the league. We brought him over from Buffalo. We feel he can be a real good starter. And we've got Swayman, who came in at the end of the year and played like a starter. So you got some young guys competing for the net every night, a couple of depth guys behind them, and Troy Grosnick and Callum Booth. And then there's the wild card with Tuukka. He had surgery. He's rehabbing. He won't be ready to play until well into February. So we'll see where he fits and where his rehab goes and where he wants to play. So I got to imagine that there's, given that quote by Bruce Cassidy, that there's a spot for him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think, obviously, it's, especially heading into a playoff situation, it's impossible to carry 3 goaltenders. You know, I think the idea of not carrying 3 goaltenders, which they could have done to begin with, was very beneficial in that they could have carried Ullmark, Swayman, and Dan Vladar, but it made sense to move him on the ladder to Calgary to get something back, because what is the benefit of Vladar to sit there and do nothing? There is no benefit. So it makes sense to move on from him. He, at that point, too, is definitely still a valuable asset. You know, a young goalie who had played well in both the AHL and in limited appearances with the Bruins. So it made sense to move on from him. But the idea of, if you bring in Tuukka Rask and maybe, you know, who knows what happens with Ullmark, who knows what happens with Swayman, but the idea of carrying 3 goaltenders who could easily be a starter, it's almost similar to, I guess, the Florida Panthers and what they had here with Knight, Dreger, and Bobrovsky. If not, obviously, DJ, I'm going to call the Bruins situation a little bit better. Obviously, I rate Dreger and Spencer Knight very highly. Bobrovsky, when he's on, his game can be great, but I view, you know, you could arguably view Knight and Swayman as somewhat equal at this point. Both were phenomenal in the NCAA. Knight has a better reputation as a first-round pick. He's earned that, and that's fine. But at the moment, you see what I'm saying. And yeah, I mean, I think, you know, for Florida, that idea of having that trio that could work, it would have worked against any other team except Tampa Bay, who went on to win the Stanley Cup. So,
yeah, I mean, you know, I guess
not to rub salt in that perhaps still somewhat fresh wound of Florida falling in the first round.
Well, Swayman did absolutely blow it in the playoffs. So I think it's hard to make the immediate comparison to Spencer Knight. So they need Tuukka Rask here. I feel like Swayman is too much of an unknown just because he doesn't have enough games under his belt yet.
True. He did jump very fast from the AHL to the NHL out of pretty much necessity.
Yeah, and like, not to be a pessimist or whatever, but how many times have you seen like a goalie that had an amazing, like, good, like, first season or first little stint and then came back and was never the same? Like, I feel like that's a tale as old as time.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
And so with only 10 games under his belt, I think it makes a lot of sense for them to bring in Tuukka. Because you just don't know. Because that's the thing. It's just Jeremy Swayman's an unknown quantity right now. So, yeah, we'll see.
So, overall, God bless you, Tuukka Rask, you fantastic saint, you. And Deej, to end this show then, I thought that'd be the last thing that we brought up, but there was something I wanted to ask you in the viewer question segment. It was a question of my own. Because there's a rumor that's drummed up again within the NFL. Deshaun Watson potentially on the move from the Houston Texans, with the Miami Dolphins being the top candidate to pick him up. Your thoughts, because we had this conversation before. I'm pretty sure before the idea of just how large the scope was of the accusations surrounding Deshaun Watson. Your thoughts on the idea of the Miami Dolphins potentially making this trade?
It's weird, right? Because after the first set of rumors, it just kept popping up. And I don't know. No one really had a credible source on it. That's what's weird. So I don't know. I mean, obviously, here you have, like, I think like it actually comes from Yahoo Sports this time. And I don't know. I feel like when you are a coach like Brian Flores, you kind of want your team to be set up in a way where, I don't know. It's just weird, right? Because, I mean, everything else aside, right? So So even like, I feel like there's even an argument against it if you put like Deshaun Watson's recent reputation aside, right? In terms of like how Flores has built up a culture with this team with Tua as his locker room leader. It seems odd, right? For there to be that kind of quick change with the style of culture that Flores has been building. You know what I mean? So I don't know.
I mean, you got to figure too, like Flores obviously comes from New England, and the Bill Belichick way is essentially like, hey, you're not bigger than the team. We don't approve of any sort of drama or anything that can be viewed as a distraction. And needless to say, the accusations against Deshaun Watson could certainly serve as a very, very large distraction, especially if found guilty and presumably suspended from the league. So,
yeah, it's the whole thing's bizarre. Like I would say, it's a very confusing thing to have happen, especially because something like this would usually only emerge on an incredibly slow news day. And I feel like the internet in general has enough thoughts about the Gardner Minshew trade. Like, even though he's a second stringer, he's just incredibly well loved across the internet, like almost mythical in a way. And so it's the whole thing is just very bizarre to me. And I don't necessarily think that it is a good locker room move.
The NFL is endlessly fascinating right now. It is for a variety of different reasons. So make the prediction. Will Deshaun Watson play a game for the Miami Dolphins this season?
No, I don't think he does. I think if he ends up on another team, it won't be for another season. I think there's too much dust that needs to settle. And Houston's asking for 3 first-round picks right now. Like, if I'm an NFL GM, I wait a year for the dust to settle because they're going to be asking for the same thing. You know what I mean? It's not like the price goes up from 3 first-round picks. Like, maybe they'll want a roster player and another first 3-round pick. But I feel like that is a reasonable price to pay for waiting for the dust to settle and seeing what comes of everything. You know?
Yeah, for sure. I agree. So with that, everybody, hope you very much enjoyed what ended up being kind of a different episode. I enjoyed the start of it, but obviously certain topics just kind of came up to bounce the conversation from here to there. So hopefully it didn't seem too disjointed. Again, but we thank you all very much for listening. A friendly reminder, of course, you can always watch us if you're not already in video form on the Tougies Take podcast channel. And of course, Spotify, Google, Apple. We post it basically everywhere that you might actually want to listen to podcasts. Again, one more time, we will be back on Tuesday and Friday of this week. We'll be getting our normal schedule back on track. Again, trying something a little bit different this week that we hope that you guys will enjoy. And we'll get back to the normal way that this show works starting the week after. So it's going to be very interesting to see how everything kind of plays out. But I'm looking forward to those different type of shows and seeing how they play out, DJ.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the next 2 episodes. I'll be taking people on some tours through hockey history with some crazy stories, things you might not have known, and some look backs while I go to a land of no internet. So until then, Tougies Take is a Deej Audio podcast. Deej Audio, you're listening to it. See y'all next week.
Bye, everybody.